If you've ever wondered why caseworkers look like they've seen a ghost, here's your answer. People marched into these offices demanding cruise money, ring lights, luxury water, and emotional damages because paperwork hurt their feelings. This is 69 dumbest social services office complaints that shouldn't be real. A highlight reel of confidence with absolutely zero evidence. 1. He screamed he couldn't survive on benefits while his custom Mercedes idled in the handicap spot right outside. This guy didn't just ask for more money. He demanded an emotional damage payment because the application process was too long. When security pointed at the luxury car worth more than the building, the man didn't blink. He claimed the Benz was a medical necessity. Why? Because driving a Honda gave him severe anxiety attacks. 2. One woman threatened to sue the entire department because her dependent was removed from her food stamp application. She slammed a photo on the desk. She shouted that her son, Fluffy, deserved to eat just like everyone else. When the caseworker gently noted that Fluffy was a golden retriever, the woman didn't back down. She accused the state of biological bias and insisted that since Fluffy identified as a hungry boy, he was legally entitled to his own EBT card. The lobby went silent like everyone collectively unfollowed reality. 3. You would think winning the lottery would be a happy exit. Not for this guy. 3 days after publicly winning $2 million, he blew up the phone lines because his benefits were cut off. Zero shame. He genuinely argued that the lottery jackpot was bonus income, like a birthday gift, and shouldn't count against his monthly allowance. He actually accused the office of stealing his $100 of food assistance from inside his $2 million era. 4. A man stormed past security demanding to know why his card was declined at a local seafood market. It wasn't a system error. It was declined because he was trying to buy 5 live lobsters and a $50 ribeye for a casual Tuesday. The supervisor said essentials. He heard fine dining discrimination. He slammed his fist on the counter, claiming that limiting him to bread and milk infringed on his constitutional rights. In his America, surf and turf is a civil right. 5. Looking for work is a requirement, but one applicant took shoot for the stars way too literally. He filed a harassment claim against his caseworker for questioning his job logs. For 6 months straight, the only position he applied for was starting point guard for the Chicago Bulls. Keep in mind, this guy was 45, 5'6", and admitted he had never played organized basketball. He told the staff they were blocking his destiny. 6. Denial is a powerful drug. A father stormed in to contest a child support payment, screaming that the government had tampered with his DNA results. His proof wasn't a timeline issue or a blood test. It was pure vanity. He looked at the photo of the child and yelled that he had super sperm, which only produced cover models. He demanded a manager to report the lab for defaming his genetic legacy. He actually said, "My genetics don't do average." Sir, please log off. 7. Just like our friend with the gourmet lobster diet, this woman felt entitled to the finer things. She insisted on filing a grievance because her caseworker refused an advance payment for a 2-week cruise to the Bahamas. Her argument? Being unemployed was incredibly stressful work. She claimed she was legally entitled to a mental health break on the taxpayer's dime to recharge her batteries. She actually asked the security guard how to report a hostile non-work environment. 8. Usually people try to hide fraud. This boyfriend walked right into the trap. He was furious that his girlfriend's benefits were slashed after investigators saw their lavish wedding photos on Facebook. He shouted that just because they were legally married didn't mean they were financially together. He ignored the joint bank account used for the honeymoon. He demanded the benefits be reinstated because technically, he didn't even like her that much right now. 9. Another gentleman called with a human rights issue. But this one wasn't about lobsters. He started a hotline meltdown because he had been charged a $10 service fee on his cash withdrawal. The problem? He tried to withdraw his cash assistance at an ATM inside a gentleman's club at 2 in the morning. He told the operator that the government should cover the surcharge because single-dollar bills are an essential work supply for the dancers he was supporting. 10. A client required to pass a drug screen for a work program failed spectacularly. Positive for 3 different illegal substances. Instead of apologizing, he demanded to speak to a supervisor to report slander. His defense was that he only smoked organic, homegrown substances. Therefore, technically, he was clean because he hadn't put any chemicals in his body. He demanded an apology letter while smelling like a chemical confession. 11. Housing assistance usually covers rent, but this applicant had a more spiritual request. He demanded a larger apartment voucher because his current unit was overcrowded. The census listed only him. He slammed his hand on the desk and insisted that the spirit of an 18th century earl lived in the spare room and required his own private study for important spectral business. He threatened to hex the supervisor for class discrimination against the undead. Apparently, in his world, ghosts don't just haunt, they need walk-in closets. 12. A man walked in declaring he was a sovereign citizen, which meant he was immune to U.S. laws, courts, and taxes. Yet, ironically, he was demanding a U.S. government check. When the clerk asked for a state ID to process the application, he refused. He screamed that driver's licenses were marks of the beast and tools of corporate oppression. He actually tried to identify himself using a homemade laminate card signed by the universe. He tried to quit the game but still demanded the high-score prize money. 13. The job search log looked impressive until the caseworker actually read the company names. This guy listed Stark Industries, Wayne Enterprises, and the Krusty Krab on his official government form. When confronted about applying to fictional billionaires, he didn't even blink. He argued that he was manifesting his future success, and applying to Walmart was limiting his vibration and damaging his chakra flow. He accused the caseworker of having toxic low energy that was blocking his cosmic path to becoming Iron Man. 14. Emergency assistance is strictly for rent or heat, not for the county jail. A woman created a massive scene demanding cash aid to bail her boyfriend out of prison. Her logic was undeniable to her. She claimed his incarceration was causing her financial hardship because he wasn't there to drive her to the mall and she refuses to walk in heels. The lobby went dead silent. She deadpan asked if the jail commissary accepted EBT cards for honey buns. 15. Winter heating bills are no joke, but this application was astronomical. A man applied for utility assistance because his electric bill was 4 times the average, enough to power a small factory. The investigator found the culprit immediately. He was heating an outdoor swimming pool to 80 degrees in the middle of a snowy December, while steam rose like a geyser. He called the denial inhumane torture, equivalent to war crimes. He argued his daily swim was a hydrotherapy necessity, just like our friend with the Mercedes. 16. The waiting room isn't a Starbucks, but don't tell that to this guy. He screamed at the receptionist not because his check was late, but because the free public Wi-Fi was lagging. He was in the middle of a competitive Call of Duty match on his phone, screaming, "Cover me!" while terrified applicants ducked under chairs. He demanded to speak to the IT director immediately. He actually threatened to bill the state for his lost ranking points. Priorities checked. 17. Section 8 housing inspections usually find mold or leaky faucets. This one found a prehistoric predator. A tenant filed a grievance stating his apartment was too small for his family needs. The family included a 6-foot alligator chilling in the bathtub, surrounded by raw chicken parts. When told he couldn't keep a man-eater in government housing, he presented a certificate printed from the internet. He swore the gator had severe separation anxiety, but the gator just looked hungry. 18. Most people are grateful for a free bus pass, but this guy had royal standards. He demanded reimbursement for travel expenses to a job interview. He didn't take the bus. He presented a receipt for an Uber black SUV because public transit gives me peasant vibes that ruin my confidence. The interview was for a part-time cashier position at a dollar store. He argued that arriving in a luxury car was part of his personal branding strategy. He didn't get the job. 19. Identity theft is a serious crime, especially when you steal from yourself. A woman reported that someone had fraudulently applied for benefits in her name. The investigation revealed the thief was her. She had used her maiden name to try and double-dip for a second check. When caught, she didn't apologize or look ashamed. She argued that pre-marriage Jessica was a distinct legal entity who preferred expensive wine. That is some Marvel-level multiverse logic. 20. The goal of the office is to help people find work, usually. One man was furious that the employment service actually found him a job. It paid well and matched his skills perfectly. The problem? It interfered with his semi-professional Tuesday morning bowling league and his strict afternoon nap schedule. He asked the supervisor if the government could provide a proxy worker to cover his shifts. He wanted the paycheck, but not the inconvenience of actually showing up. 21. Charity usually involves saying thank you, not, "Can I speak to the manager?" A woman returned a free frozen turkey to the food bank office and demanded a cash refund. For a free turkey, she poked the bird and claimed it was too small and looked dry, which was a personal insult to her culinary skills. She demanded a voucher for Whole Foods instead, so she could buy an organic free-range bird that fit her clean-eating aesthetic. She actually left a 1-star review on Google complaining about the lack of premium options. 22. A man filed a formal harassment grievance that had the legal team confused. It wasn't about inappropriate touching. He filed the complaint against his caseworker because she refused to date him after he slid his phone number under the glass. He argued that her professional attire was entrapment and false advertising. He claimed her rejection created a hostile customer service experience. Sir, this is a government office, not Tinder. 23. Emergency funds cover unexpected disasters like fires or floods. This guy tried to claim a technology crisis. He applied for $300 in emergency cash because his PlayStation 5 overheated and bricked during a tournament. He argued the console was his only link to the outside world, classifying it as a critical medical device, just like an oxygen tank. He told the clerk that living without Fortnite was a human rights violation. 24. A man walked in wearing an ill-fitting suit from the 80s, carrying an empty briefcase, looking very important. He wasn't a lawyer. He was a client threatening to sue for time theft because the line was 20 minutes long. He slid a handwritten invoice across the counter, calculating his hourly consulting rate at $500. The system showed his reported income was zero, but he claimed he was just valuing his future potential. 25. You can't make this up. A couple asked for travel assistance, which is usually for funerals or medical trips. They wanted gas money for a networking conference in Las Vegas. The caseworker discovered the conference was actually a high-stakes poker tournament at the Bellagio. They insisted they had a mathematically foolproof system that would get them off benefits forever. They claimed the gas money was a sound government investment, but the House always wins, and today, the House said no. 26. A young woman stormed into the office furious that her work uniform allowance had been denied. Most people buy non-slip shoes or scrubs, but she had submitted receipts for $300 worth of Sephora makeup and a ring light. She insisted that as an aspiring influencer, looking flawless was a job requirement and the government was suppressing her creative career. When the caseworker asked for her handle to verify her income, she admitted she had 12 followers and 9 of them were bots. She accused the office of killing her engagement metrics. 27. Financial literacy is tough, but this request was a masterclass in delusion. A man demanded emergency disaster relief funds, usually reserved for hurricanes or tornadoes, because his portfolio had crashed overnight. He wasn't talking about stocks. He had invested his entire previous benefit check into a meme cryptocurrency featuring a dog wearing sunglasses. He screamed that the government bails out Wall Street, so they should bail out his doggy coin losses too. He genuinely believed his bad investment was a federally insured banking error. 28. Refusing a job offer usually results in losing benefits, but this applicant had a medical excuse that baffled the staff. He turned down a perfectly good warehouse position because he claimed to have a severe allergy to polyester blends. He wasn't breaking out in hives, he just thought the mandatory uniform was hideous and clashed with his aura. He actually asked the supervisor if the state would provide a stipend so he could have the uniform custom-tailored by a designer in Italy. He would rather starve than wear ill-fitting khakis. 29. We have seen some creative definitions of groceries, but this one takes the cake, literally. A man tried to file a discrimination complaint because a bakery refused to accept his EBT card for a purchase. He wasn't buying bread. He was trying to buy a 3-tiered, fondant-covered wedding cake costing $600. He argued that since cake is technically food, he had a right to feed his wedding guests on the taxpayer's dime. He shouted that the government was ruining his special day and demanded the manager call Washington. 30. A woman came in demanding a relocation voucher to move to a new apartment immediately. The inspector hadn't found mold or rats. The problem was invisible. She claimed the new 5G tower down the street was broadcasting her thoughts to the neighbors, and she needed a lead-lined apartment for privacy. She stood in the lobby with a colander on her head to block the signals, while screaming that the receptionist was reading her mind. The security guard gently told her that her thoughts were definitely loud enough to be heard without technology. 31. Most mothers fight for their children, but this one was fighting for her baby's nutritional needs in a very weird way. She demanded WIC coupons specifically for baby formula. The problem? Her baby was her 24-year-old son who was a bodybuilder. She argued that the formula was the purest source of protein for his gains, and regular protein powder was too expensive. She slammed a picture of his biceps on the counter as proof of medical necessity. She essentially wanted the government to sponsor his quest to get ripped. 32. A gentleman missed his mandatory appointment 3 times in a row and came in to appeal the sanction. His excuse wasn't a flat tire or a sick kid. He claimed he was a time traveler stuck in the wrong timeline and his phone was synced to the year 2045. He argued that technically, in his timeline, he was early for the appointment by 20 years. He demanded the office adjust their clocks to match his temporal reality, or pay him a consulting fee for visiting from the future. He didn't have a time machine, but he did have a very expired bus pass. 33. A man filed a formal grievance regarding the unlivable conditions of his subsidized housing unit. The inspector arrived expecting a disaster but found a pristine apartment. The tenant was furious because the morning sun hit his bedroom window at an aggressive angle that woke him up before noon. He demanded the government pay to rotate the entire apartment building 30 degrees to the left. He called the sunrise a harassment tactic designed to disrupt his beauty's sleep. 34. You really have to admire the confidence of someone claiming to be a sovereign king while asking for a handout. A man walked behind the front desk and tried to log into the caseworker's computer. When security grabbed him, he screamed that as a taxpayer, he technically owned the building and was therefore the CEO of the department. He tried to fire the security guard for insubordination and demanded the access codes to the vault. He was shocked to learn that paying sales tax on a soda didn't give him executive power over the state government. 35. Employment Services tries to match skills with jobs, but this applicant's resume was a work of fiction. He listed his occupation as paranormal investigator and ghostbuster. He refused a job at a landscaping company because the soil had bad juju and disturbed the earth spirits. He demanded the office find him a position that utilized his unique skill set of yelling at empty attics. He actually asked for a grant to buy a proton pack. The only thing he was hunting was a reason not to work. 36. A woman demanded reimbursement for medical transportation expenses, which is a real program for doctor visits. However, her receipts were for round-trip Uber rides to a local casino. She slammed her hand on the desk and argued that she had a diagnosed gambling addiction, and going to the slots was her therapy. She claimed that denying her ride to the casino was denying her medical treatment. She honestly thought the state should chauffeur her to the roulette table for her mental health. 37. Everyone hates doing laundry, but this guy tried to monetize his laziness. He applied for an emergency grant to replace his entire wardrobe. There was no fire or flood. He simply stated that he had run out of clean clothes and didn't know how to use a washing machine. He argued it was more cost-effective for the government to buy him new outfits than for him to risk ruining the clothes by washing them incorrectly. He wanted a check for $500 because he refused to buy detergent. 38. A man caused a scene because his application was denied due to excess income. He was furious because the income in question was illegal. He had accidentally reported his earnings from selling herbal refreshments on the street corner. He argued that the government shouldn't count hustle money because he didn't pay taxes on it. He screamed that it was a double standard to count his illegal income against him while the IRS ignored it. He basically confessed to a crime while trying to get food stamps. Two cops in the lobby looked up like meerkats. 39. Refusing a valid job offer usually results in an immediate sanction, but this woman's excuse was written in the stars. She turned down a high-paying administrative role not because of the hours or the pay, but because the manager was a Gemini. She slammed her horoscope on the desk and explained that her astrological chart was in retrograde, making it unsafe to work with air signs. She demanded the state filter all future job leads by zodiac compatibility to protect her vibrational alignment. She essentially asked the government to be her cosmic matchmaker. 40. Service animals are protected by law, but this tenant stretched the definition to the breaking point. He filed a discrimination complaint against his landlord for trying to evict his emotional support animal. It wasn't a dog or a cat. It was a 200-pound pot-bellied pig named Sir Oinks-a-Lot, living in a third-floor studio apartment. He claimed the pig's squeals were therapeutic frequencies that cured his insomnia. The downstairs neighbors, who suddenly had a lot of questions for maintenance, disagreed with the therapy. 41. The waiting room rules are simple. No loud noises and no food. One guy decided to break both records simultaneously. After waiting 40 minutes, he ordered a large pepperoni pizza from Domino's directly to the lobby. When the delivery driver arrived, the man screamed at the armed security guard to let the food through because he was staging a hunger strike that had lasted since breakfast. He ate the entire pizza while maintaining eye contact with the hungry people around him. A true power move. 42. Most people are happy to get clean drinking water, but this applicant had a palate refined by Instagram. He filed a grievance because his EBT card worked for generic spring water, but he wanted to buy a case of premium imported alkaline water that cost $5 a bottle. He shouted that drinking tap water or generic brands was poisoning his temple and calcifying his pineal gland. He demanded a hydration stipend so he could drink water that had been blessed by Tibetan monks. Sir, it's all H2O. 43. Job search expenses usually cover bus passes or printing resumes, not romance. A man submitted a reimbursement form for a subscription to Tinder Gold and Bumble Premium. His logic was absolutely bulletproof in his own mind. He argued that finding a wealthy, high-income girlfriend was the fastest, most efficient way to get off government assistance, so technically, his dating profile was a strategic networking tool. He categorized his dates as pre-employment screening interviews. You have to respect the hustle, even if it's delusional. 44. Medical necessity implies things like insulin or heart medication, but this woman had a different emergency. She demanded the state cover a Botox treatment for her forehead. She wasn't fighting wrinkles. She claimed she suffered from resting mean face, which was causing her to fail job interviews. She argued that a frozen, pleasant expression was a uniform requirement for customer service and therefore a tax-deductible work expense. She literally wanted the government to pay her to look surprised. 45. A man came in furious that his work hours weren't being counted toward his benefit requirements. He claimed to work 40 hours a week as a cultural research analyst. Upon closer inspection, his research consisted entirely of binge-watching Netflix series and leaving angry comments on Reddit threads. He argued that his internet arguments were shaping public discourse, and he deserved a salary for being a digital warrior. The caseworker had to explain that trolling strangers online is a hobby, not a career. 46. We've heard of paper cuts, but this medical exemption was unique. A man refused to pick up his physical check because he claimed to be allergic to cheap government ink. He insisted that touching the paper caused his fingers to swell, preventing him from playing his guitar, which was his future career. He demanded the payment be delivered in cash, preferably in non-sequential bills, or converted into gold bullion to protect his health. He wore yellow hazmat gloves to sign the refusal form. 47. Preparing for an interview is important, but this guy took dress for success to a financial extreme. He applied for a clothing allowance and submitted a receipt for a $400 Gucci belt. When the caseworker pointed out he was interviewing for a stocking position at a grocery store, he didn't flinch. He shouted that he needed to drip to show the manager he had CEO energy. He argued that wearing generic brands would lower his confidence and cost him the job. He didn't get the job, but he kept the belt. 48. Childcare costs are a massive barrier to work, so the state offers subsidies. A woman applied for childcare payments for her 3 kids. The problem? The nanny listed on the form was her own 6-year-old son. She argued that he was very mature for his age and knew how to use the microwave, so he was qualified to watch the toddler. She wanted the state to write the check directly to the 6-year-old so he could start his college fund. The only thing that kid was watching was Paw Patrol. 49. A man filed a formal complaint regarding the hostile architecture of the social services building. He wasn't talking about wheelchair ramps. He was furious that the fluorescent lighting in the lobby didn't flatter his complexion for his TikTok livestream. He had been filming himself complaining about the wait time, but the lighting made him look washed out and tired. He demanded the office install ring lights at every window so applicants could create content while applying for aid. Priorities, people. 50. Healthy living is encouraged, but this gym membership request was a stretch. A man demanded the state pay for an Equinox membership, the kind with eucalyptus towels and steam rooms, costing $200 a month. He refused a free pass to the YMCA. He argued that networking with rich people in the sauna was his employment strategy, and sweating next to millionaires would help him osmosis his way into a job. He called the YMCA a poverty trap that would ruin his mindset. 51. Neighbor disputes are common in housing, but this one was purely psychological. A tenant demanded to be moved to a new unit because his neighbor was too happy. He claimed the neighbor's constant whistling and morning singing constituted toxic positivity that was worsening his depression. He filed a noise complaint stating that excessive joy was a violation of his right to a miserable, quiet existence. He actually asked the police to do a welfare check on the guy for smiling too much. 52. A young man stormed in demanding to know why his benefits had been suspended. The reason was simple. He had posted photos of himself on Instagram holding massive stacks of cash with the caption "Grind never stops." When the investigator showed him the screenshots, he didn't panic. He laughed and claimed the money was prop cash he bought on Amazon to manifest wealth and impress girls. He argued that looking rich on social media shouldn't disqualify him from actually being poor. He demanded his check back so he could buy more fake money for his next photo shoot. 53. Most people try to minimize their expenses on paper, but this guy went the other way. He applied for a special needs housing allowance, claiming his apartment required acoustic modifications. the modification he wanted: a $5,000 professional soundproofing installation for his bedroom. He wasn't a musician. He was a wannabe podcaster who screamed conspiracy theories into a microphone at 3 a.m. He argued that his broadcast quality was a critical business asset, and the neighbors banging on the walls was censorship. 54. A woman filed a grievance against the transportation department for denying her a bus pass. But she didn't just want a pass, she wanted a chauffeur. She argued that riding the bus with common people triggered her sensory processing disorder because of the smells and bad fashion choices. She demanded the city provide her with private Uber credits, equal to the cost of a bus pass plus a dignity surcharge. She actually used the phrase, "Public transit is an assault on my senses," and blamed it on her aura. 55. Emergency food assistance is for immediate hunger, not catering events. A man applied for an expedited EBT card because he had a family reunion that weekend. The family turned out to be 50 people, and he wanted to buy steaks, shrimp, and 3 kegs of beer. When told that alcohol and catering aren't covered, he slammed his fist on the desk. He shouted that denying him the ability to host a barbecue was destroying the social fabric of his community and embarrassing him as the alpha male of the family. 56. A man walked in wearing a tinfoil hat, literally, and demanded a hazard pay increase to his monthly check. He wasn't working in a coal mine. He claimed the new LED streetlights outside his apartment were emitting mind control frequencies that forced him to buy useless items on Amazon. He argued that his compulsive shopping was a direct result of government beams, and therefore the state should reimburse him for the 3 blenders and a countertop ice maker he bought last Tuesday. He wanted a check for psychological damages. 57. You have to appreciate the honesty, even if it's illegal. A woman appealed her disqualification for failing a drug test by arguing discrimination against her religious practices. She claimed she was a member of the First Church of the Holy Herb, a religion she invented that morning on a napkin. She stated that smoking weed before a job interview was a sacrament to calm her nerves, and the employer's drug policy was spiritual oppression. Then she demanded the office punish the employer for being anti-faith. "Ma'am, you can't found a church at breakfast and call it a loophole by lunch." 58. A gentleman demanded a new caseworker because his current one had bad vibes. He wasn't talking about rudeness. He meant literally. He pulled out a crystal pendulum in the middle of the interview and let it swing over the caseworker's desk. When it spun counterclockwise, he gasped and recoiled. He screamed that her energy field was clouded with demonic bureaucracy and refused to sit in the chair. He demanded a caseworker with a lighter aura, or he would report the office for spiritual negligence. 59. Applying for disability usually requires a doctor's note, but this guy brought a note from his life coach. He claimed he was unable to work due to chronic success intolerance. He argued that every time he got a job, he self-sabotaged because he was subconsciously afraid of his own greatness. He wanted disability payments to fund a 6-month retreat in Bali to heal his inner child and overcome his fear of earning a paycheck. He essentially asked the government to sponsor his gap year. 60. A tenant in subsidized housing filed a maintenance request that sounded like a horror movie script. He complained about unauthorized roommates living in his walls. Maintenance found nothing. The tenant insisted that a colony of hyper-intelligent squirrels had tapped his phone lines and were plotting to steal his identity. He demanded the landlord pay for an exterminator who specialized in espionage rodents. He even presented blurry photos of a squirrel looking suspiciously organized as proof of the conspiracy. 61. A woman came in furious that her utility allowance didn't cover her internet bill. She argued that in the modern world, high-speed fiber internet is more important than water or heat. Her reasoning: she needed 4K streaming resolution to watch her favorite reality shows, which she classified as educational research for her future career as a real housewife. She shouted that buffering was a human rights violation and demanded the state pay for the gigabit upgrade immediately. Priorities: 100% sorted. 62. A man demanded a refund for his job search expenses, which usually covers bus fare or printing paper. He submitted a receipt for a $300 bottle of cologne. He argued that scent is the strongest memory trigger, and he needed to smell like success and power to hypnotize the hiring manager. He claimed that smelling like Old Spice was the reason he was still unemployed. He literally wanted the taxpayers to fund his pheromone strategy. He didn't get the job, but the lobby smelled like a perfume factory explosion. 63. We've seen entitlement, but this is advanced entitlement. A woman refused to move into a perfectly good Section 8 apartment because the address number added up to an unlucky number in numerology. She screamed that living at number 413, 4 plus Mwami is 3 Mao 8, would bring financial ruin to her life. Ironic, considering she was already broke. She demanded the city officially change the street address of the entire building to something more prosperous, like 777. She would rather be homeless than numerically cursed. 64. A guy walked in to report a stolen EBT card. The investigation showed the card was used at a gas station 10 minutes prior. He admitted he sold the card for 50 cents on the dollar to buy lottery tickets. When the investigator pointed out that selling benefits is a felony, he looked genuinely confused. He argued that it was investment banking, and he was just diversifying his portfolio. He asked if he could get a temporary loan card until his lottery numbers hit. The only thing he hit was a ban list. 65. Most people wear suits to court, but this guy wore a bathrobe to his benefits hearing. He claimed he had a textile sensitivity to anything with buttons or zippers. He argued that forcing him to wear pants was cruel and unusual punishment under the Geneva Convention. He demanded the judge allow him to attend job interviews in his pajamas to accommodate his tactile disability. The judge was not impressed, especially when he saw the guy wearing jeans in the parking lot 5 minutes later. 66. A woman demanded emergency housing because her current apartment was haunted by a broke ghost. She claimed the spirit of a former tenant was mooching off her energy and making her tired, which is why she couldn't find a job. She didn't want just any apartment. She demanded a new construction unit because ghosts hate fresh paint. She actually asked the caseworker if the housing voucher covered an exorcism fee. Apparently, even the afterlife has a rent crisis. 67. A man applied for a business grant to start his own company. The business plan? Professional line standing. He wanted $10,000 to buy a tent and a chair, so he could wait in line for new iPhones and sneakers for rich people. When told that grants require a viable business model, he shouted that patience is a commodity, and the government was suppressing a new industry. He argued he was an urban endurance athlete. He refused to leave the line for the supervisor's office, ironically proving his skills. 68. You have to respect the creativity. A woman tried to add her 5 cats to her food stamp case as tasting consultants. She claimed she was starting a pet food review blog and the cats were her employees. She argued that since they were working for the business, their food should be a deductible business expense covered by the state. She slammed a picture of a cat eating fancy feast on the desk as proof of labor. She wanted the government to subsidize her cat's career in food critique. 69. And finally, the undisputed champion of audacity. A man filed a formal complaint because the ATM dispensed $20 bills instead of hundreds. He argued that carrying a thick stack of 20s made his wallet too bulky and caused him back pain, which was a workplace injury since spending money was his full-time job. He demanded the state pay for a chiropractor and a slimmer wallet. He literally complained that his free money wasn't dispensed in high enough denominations. You can't make this stuff up. Congratulations! You just survived 69 dumbest social services office complaints that shouldn't be real. Which one of these people would you least want behind you in line? And what's the first sentence you'd say when they start complaining out loud? Make it brutal. If you've ever worked retail, government, or customer service, you already have an answer. Tap like if at least one story broke your brain, and subscribe if you want more proof that confidence is not the same thing as intelligence.